Hey, folks, this is Rebel Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Tornado, Tony Pennicott. Psychic Tom Paget with his crystal ball giving a nod to one of our co-hosts here.
Yeah.
We'll discuss that, folks.
In case you didn't listen last week, we had Tony stole the crystal ball and became Psychic Tornado. And here's the clip from last week. And then I proceeded to say that I was going to bet on it, and I did not.
And going back, that fight, I turned it on. I think it was like the second or third round when I turned it on. I had been doing a few things. Perfect timing, So Usyk had won those first few rounds, and it was a fight that he was expected to win, and it was a fight he was expected to win rather handily. To be totally honest, Daniel Dubois is a good fighter, but I mean, he was a viable contender, but I wouldn't put him on Usyk's level. I wouldn't put him on Fury's level. And I'm going to get to Tyson Fury in a minute, too, because he had the ultimate troll job that I saw today. So, the controversy of this fight was the low blow. And I think it was, around the 6th or 7th round? Yes, it was a bit? Okay. Yes, sir. So, what happened there, and Dubois lands a punch in an uppercut type of manner, and it lands under Usyk's belt line. So if he was wearing, I think he was wearing white trunks. I don't remember if he had trim. So really, and I learned this in college boxing, the reason they make trim on a pair of trunks is that so you could differentiate where a low blow is.
Yeah.
So then you started getting people going with like the solid colors, like Mike Tyson, the solid black, and all these different people just with solid color trunks. And that, sometimes will make it difficult to, decipher if the punch was below the belt line. Now, Usyk's trunks weren't exactly high, and the punch landed in an uppercut manner. And the reason that is significant here is if anybody's been in the ring and has been hit with a low blow, I know I have. I've been hit, and I've hit.
Yeah.
The part, and I remember
I was hit with a pugil stick low blow once.
Watching Tuesday Night Fights back in the day with Al Albert and Sean O'Grady, and the one thing Sean would always say is the reason a low blow, especially one that lands off to the side, hurts is because it actually moves your protective cup.
Yeah.
So even though he landed like above where the testicles would be, it was in an uppercut manner, which would then pull that cup up. And unfortunately, not having a lot of fun here, you men are cringing, but that cup would then kind of pinch and crush your testicles by moving. So you'll see guys like they throw a punch and it's like on like a hooking punch and land on the side. And like, well, why does that hurt? It's not hitting him in the nuts. Yeah, but it's actually moving that cup, which is then, affecting the testicles.
Alrighty then, Dr. Tony has made his conclusion.
I'm a PhD in nutshotology.
Yeah,
and Usyk got up, now...
Not fun.
Not fun. It obviously did take some of the wind out of his sails. People were like, that was a body shot. By the rules of boxing, and Iceman Scully make the best point. That's why I love reading his stuff. Yeah. Iceman Scully will come out there and he goes, if he would have landed, say, 5 shots in that area, people would have been like, oh my God, he hit him with 5 low blows. Because there's no difference between 1 shot, 5 shots, or 15 shots. If it's below the belt, it's a foul.
Yeah.
End of story. And Usyk went down, and you're right, if it was called a body shot, could he have gotten up? Well, hard to say, because from the start, the referee said, stay down.
Yeah.
Take your 5 minutes. And when he recovered, he was fine, and he went on, and he knocked out Daniel Dubois in 9 rounds. After the referee told him to take even more time after he said he was fine.
Oh, jeez.
I just loved it. Yeah, And then we had the president of Ukraine give a pep talk before the fight. Oh, yeah. You know, Teddy was on a bit of a rage about that because, like he said, that what Atlas likes about MMA is they don't overly favor one fighter as a rule. Now they have in the past, but it's not as blatant. But you know, boxing and the big fights, you pretty much know who the house fighter is. You know, as we've seen with Anderson Saturday night, also, you pretty much know, and that's the way it went.
We were. I didn't get to see the Anderson fight. I didn't get home in time. I had to go out for a little bit and do an appearance. But shit, I just lost my train of thought on that. Oh, yeah, speaking about the house fighter, a couple of years ago, and my dad and I were actually talking about this tonight, when we were in Las Vegas for the Canelo Alvarez Danny Jacobs fight. Now, we thought Canelo won the decision clearly. Jacobs gave up too many of the early rounds, and it was too much of a margin to try to make up. Those close rounds were going to go to Canelo. And when we were walking out, I was walking out, met a guy from Philly who was down there, and as he was walking out, he goes, there was no way Jacobs was winning that fight tonight, and he just pointed to the ski of the Cinco de Mayo heavy Mexican population. He goes, no way he gets that decision because of this, and he just pointed to the whole crowd. Now, the ultimate troll job that I saw earlier today was Tyson Fury. So Tyson Fury posted a photo, I think it was on his Instagram, and he's wearing a pair of boxing trunks pulled up to his nipple. Other ironic thing, I saw a picture today on social media, either yesterday or today, of two retired heavyweights that were former rivals. And it's so ironic that I see their picture together today. Would you like to guess what two heavyweight rivals I'm talking about here?
Oh, Tyson and Holyfield?
No, not Tyson. It was neither, not Tyson nor Holyfield.
Oh, Jesus.
I'll give you a hint. One was a champion, one was not a champion, but he fought for the title.
I don't know. You got me. Give it up.
Time to
I don't want you to take a chance.
I'll give you a hint. Think low blows.
Oh, Andrew Galata.
Galata.
Galata and Bo?
How did we forget that? Yeah,
there was a picture of Bo and Galata together,
Galata,
right? I didn't recognize Galata at first. And I'm like, oh, who's really? I'm like, oh my God, that's Galata. And you see, like, Bo's got his right arm around Galata's shoulder, and his left arm is like down. Someone's like, it looks like he's trying to defend from a low blow.
Yeah. That's funny.
He was like, I haven't seen this guy in like 20 years, but you can't be too sure.
Yeah, I just got Bo's signature from Scully.
Oh, really?
For a steal.
Now, Rich, the thing you sent me, and thank you, by the way, it was the Leonard Hearns program.
Yeah.
And I saw there was two signatures on it. The one, I didn't want to put it on social media until I could be sure who they were. Yeah. The one looked like Emily Griffith.
Emil
but
Griffith.
The one wasn't still like this as hell.
Emil Griffith and Hearns. Hearns' signatures on it.
Oh, it was Hearns. Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I'll frame that and put that in my gym.
But then I was like, shit, I got a better one. And he's been doing them, I guess, bad timing because nobody's been bidding what they should be bidding. Like Harvey Dock, who we're going to actually have on the show tonight, was bidding on another Roy Jones one. That was like, we went through the roof. I think he ended up paying like $450 for it. So I got one with Roy Jones and your boy, Bernard Hopkins, on the cover of a magazine.
I saw that. I think Scotty posted that one. Yeah. And I was going to make a comment by not saying what year it was. And then you think, well, it's obvious, so you can tell it's from their second fight because they're not 23 and like 29 respectively.
Yeah.
You could tell that they were, definitely in their late 30s and 40s by that time.
I was tempted to tell him to keep it and get Bernard's signature on it, and we'll give it to Tony for his 50th.
which unfortunately is not that all far off anymore.
No, we might get it to you sooner than that because it's on the way to me. But I was like, shit, Tony needs this. He's a Philadelphia guy. And I kind of felt bad because I didn't realize Emil Griffith's signature was on it too, and it's like right in the middle of it. So I was like, it's good.
That was the first one I could make out because I could see clearly.
It's like a good signature to have, but it's like he's not even on the magazine cover. It was like so on the picture, so it's weird. But yeah, I was like, so this one's got Roy Jones Jr. on it, former guest of ours, and a Philadelphia guy. So
great guest of ours too.
And you have
he was fun.
You have the gym to put it in.
And I always tell the Roy Jones story. A couple of years after we interviewed him, it was probably about 5 years after we interviewed him, he got on, and the first thing, I joked with you, Rich, I said, can I ask the first question? And you're like, yeah. So the first thing I said to him in a joking manner was, Roy, why didn't you just knock that Korean boy out? We never would have had this bullshit with the Olympic scoring. And he joked, he said, yeah, I know. Now, was it you guys telling me, or was it somebody telling me that Korean fighter is wearing a shirt that says, I beat Roy Jones in the Olympics?
I don't think I said that.
Somebody was telling me that not that long ago. Yeah. That Korean guy, like they were together, and he's with Roy Jones, the first time they'd seen each other in years, and he's wearing a shirt that says, I beat Roy Jones in the Olympics. and I think I commented on it might have been on social media. And I'm like, the shirt he should be wearing says, I beat Roy Jones' fist with my face in the Olympics. I really pummeled the hell out of his fist.
Yeah, that was a bad one. So yeah, I got that for $107. Technically, I ended up giving them $120. But man, what is going on with these things? Because it was like sparking up a lot of interest, and now I guess everybody's tapped out. It's a sign of the recession. It's coming.
Speaking of boxing, you know what I'll have to send you guys? Last Wednesday, I filmed an in-studio podcast in Norristown.
I did see that. I have not listened to it yet, but I will check it out.
And only, a few miles from where Hank Cisco grew up. These guys I met at an Italian feast, which was at Hank Cisco's parish, where last time I was with him was his funeral there. And these guys see me at this feast, four Italian guys, and they're like, hey, can we interview you? I'm like, sure. They're like, we can't hear in here. Can we go to this parking lot over there? I'm like, sure. And they're like, this guy's got the balls to walk with 4 strangers to a parking lot to be interviewed. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm watching you guys with cameras and stuff. It's not like you're doing anything shady. It's not like you're sitting there saying, hey, we want to interview you, and you're like, you all got your hands in your pockets with guns and knives. No, I saw you, with your cameras setting up. And then, but also in the back of my mind, I'm like setting up a contingency plan. If this is shady, which guy do I hit first? So they interviewed me at the Italian Fest. We had a nice talk, about 10 minutes. And then they said, hey, we do a podcast in Norristown, right by the one church. I said, that's by my friend's house. And they said, we know Hank Cisco. We knew Hank Cisco. Can you come and talk about your being a Philly super fan and your boxing career and being Italian and Hank Cisco and just a bunch of topics? I said, yeah. So I go to this warehouse or this office building, and the first thing the host says, he goes, we saw this guy at the Italian feast, and we liked him. We got to talk to this guy. And he was willing to walk with 4 strangers to a parking lot to get interviewed. And we're like, wow, this guy's, he's willing to do that. And he goes, then you come to find out he probably knocked all 4 of us the fuck out in a matter of seconds.
Nice.
And you guys who have known me for years now, you guys know that, and I may have learned this from, knowing guys like Hank Cisco, I'm rarely ever at a loss for words. And we had slotted this podcast for 30 minutes. We went an hour and 15.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
Totally believe it. Well, the next time the great Houdini, great psychic tornado Tony Penicow makes a fucking prediction, I'm going to definitely bet on it. So you better be on your game next time, Tony. Third time's a charm, as they say.
Right.
Anyway, we had some big MMA fights last week. Only UFC going on, so no other stuff to talk about except PFL with Clay Collard, which we got to last week anyway because it was already happened. But anyway, Clay Collard got into the finals. So he's an MMA star and a boxing star. Doing pretty good. Looking for the $1 million check if he wins the next one. But we had the main event of featherweights. Tom and I got that one right, but I didn't win any money on it. Max Holloway beating Chan Sung Jung by a wild knockout punch in round 3. Chan Sung Jung came out like his hair was on fire, and he needed the knockout in the 3rd round, like that was the last round or something, but it was a 5-round fight, and he just was too sloppy. And Holloway hit him with a hook from hell, and sent him into the canvas like with whiplash. It was just bad. The way the angle he came in, it's just obviously not thinking, just desperation, and not planting his feet correctly, and he just got clobbered. It was almost like a clothesline. And
well, the zombie had to shake things up and do something drastic.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that was about his only chance, is to just make it a hideous dogfight.
Yep.
And he tried.
23 seconds into the 3rd round, Holloway took him out. And I had a feeling Holloway was going to do it earlier, but Sung Jung was sort of ready for a longer fight, but he just was like, screw it, I'm going to floor it. I'm going to go pedal to the metal. And he actually was connecting. And there was a couple of times where he literally wobbled Holloway, but Holloway was patient and smart enough to get his distance, get his bearings back, and then re-engage. But he's getting, as he stays in the cage a little bit longer and takes these kind of fights, he's getting a little bit more careful with the slugfest. I mean, Sung Jung started it, so he had to finish it, but usually he's pivoting out of those type of slugfests now and punching smartly. So he was kind of crazy to see him get rocked a couple times, but not rocked enough. Sung Jung couldn't string him together. It was just a big, huge reach disadvantage, number one. And Sung Jung was ready to retire. He obviously had that on his mind. Like, if I can't beat this guy, I'm going to retire. So that has to be in your head in that situation. And he made a good attempt. It was a good fight to go out on. But I kind of think we knew Holloway was going to take care of that one. Anthony Smith versus Ryan Spann. That one was just a mess of a fight. Just ugly as hell. I thought Spann was going to knock him out at one point, and he just couldn't do more than pitter-patter. At his weight, light heavyweight, and you've got a guy in that position, and you can't knock him out? I mean, what is wrong with you? Ryan Spann has just kind of dropped off. It just looked bad. It was a split decision still, but he totally faded in the 3rd. He had Smith's eye all messed up. Like, it's one of those situations where 3 or 4 more hard punches to the eye could have stopped the fight, and he just, like, he gave up. Come on, dude. It's not good. So, and then Giga Chikadze versus Alex Caceres was a little bit close early on. Caceres was annoying him, taking weird angles, and he had a smart strategy until Chikadze did what he always does. He started getting into his range and landing kicks and punches, and he ended up getting the unanimous decision. But Caceres, they kept talking about how he was smiling the whole time. Pissing off Chikadze, but Chikadze was actually very thrilled to get the win. I'm not sure he might have thought it was closer than it was on the judges' cards. We had bantamweights. Rinya Nakamura took out Fernie Garcia by unanimous decision. That was kind of an interesting fight to watch because Fernie Garcia just got absolutely thrown around the cage in this fight. And his corner guy was trying to motivate him, and he kept like eye rolling him, and like it's just going, go, come on, dude, you see what this guy's doing to me? Like that's what he was saying. He didn't say it out loud. His eyes were saying that, but his corner was just like, go out there. Just was like round one. They're saying in the third round. Just go out there and just do what you can do, and he basically survived the fight. But yeah, it was pretty impressive. Just to be able to do that with some of the submission attempts and the technique that Nakamura does just wears you down. It's like wrestling and jiu-jitsu in a weird combination. Only he does. But anyway, he won that fight. Then Aaron Blanchfield before that got his decision over Taylor Santos. That was unanimous all the way. Parker Porter, he finished a streak of, let's say, 4 straight fights that ended in the first round to TKO or knockout. We had Junior Tafa over Parker Porter, 1 minute and 24 seconds into their fight. Waldo, Cortez, Acosta, these guys are both heavyweights fighting these fights. Beat Lucas Bresky by knockout 3 minutes and 1 second into the first. Garrett Armfield was the surprise. Bantamweight. TKO the guy in the first round. Toshiomi Kazama. 4 minutes and 16 seconds into the first round. And Michael Olsujuk over Chidi Njokuani in the first round. 4 minutes and 16 seconds as well. Back-to-back fights, exact same time. I wonder if you could even bet on that. I don't think that's ever happened. Jesus, that's crazy. 5th and 6th fights. Ended at 4-16 in the first round. Both by TKO from punches. Fourth fight of the night was Keenan Song over Rolando Bedoya by unanimous decision. We had Billy Goff over Yusaku Kinoshita by TKO. That was 3 minutes and 49 seconds into the first. So here's another one. First round knockout. It's like, you have these fights where it's like, half the cards are decisions, and then you get cards like this, all these first round knockouts. Nuts. JJ Aldrich, female fight in the second fight of the night over Nia Lang by TKO from punches and elbows. 4 minutes and 49 seconds into the second round. Then Sungwoo Choi, featherweight fight, beating Jarno Aarons by unanimous decision in the first fight. Let's go through. We need Tom's psychic prediction on the next one. Gagne versus Spivak. What do you think, Tom?
Well,
in Paris, mind you.
Yeah, and this is so fascinating because you just wonder how Gagne will recover, how he'll come back.
Yeah, it's almost like
I just think he's damaged goods.
Yeah, I do too. So, I don't like that he's the favorite though. Well, I've seen Spivak ruin the bet for me when he arm triangled the guy when he was about to knock him out. So he can do it either way. And Cyril Gagne he's the type of guy that's going to have to drag it out to a 5-round fight and exhaust him before he can beat him with his style. And like he can only beat so many people by that style. But at the same time, like Sergey Spivak on his record, he's got people like, the football player that beat his wife there. That was his name. No longer in the UFC. He's got like guys like him on his record, and Gagne's got like guys that are really high caliber fighters. So Ngannou and Jones, the losses too. So it's kind of one of those things. Like, is he going to come back to form like where he was beating some of those bigger names and take care of Sergey Spivak? And is the home field advantage going to help him? Or is Spivak going to do what Spivak does and shock the world?
and everybody in the arena in France. So we'll see. I don't know. I got my money on Spivak mostly, but a lot of people are liking Cyril Gane by decision. I don't know. I guess they don't have faith in his knockout power, but he does have knockout power too. Just hasn't come out in a while. Spivak's got a pretty decent chin though. So I'd say, you do the double chance on that one. Double chance of win, or you just go submission or knockout. Sergey Spivak. It's probably positive odds because he's the underdog on the Bear Lions. The co-main event, we've got Mianon Fiorot. She is 10-1 at flyweight against Rose Namajunas, who is 11-5. That's a flyweight fight. Rose is changing weights, and Fiorot has had a lot of finishes, but nobody at Rose's level. So Rose has said she's going to choke her out. She's going to take her down and choke her out. So if that's what she says she's going to do, you got to take a flyer on that. Rose by submission. We'll see. Then we got Benoit St. Denis. He's 11-1, fighting Thiago Moises, who's 17-6. I like St. Denis. He's got a lot of submissions. He's going to take care of that one. Volkan Ozdemir, 18-7 at light heavyweight, fighting Bogdan Guskov, who is 14-2. Guskov doesn't have a lot of UFC experience. Ozdemir definitely does. So, I like him in that one, Ozdemir. William Gomez, 12-2 at featherweight, fighting Giannis Gamori, who's 12-1. Morgan Charrier, 18-9, with one draw at featherweight, fighting Manolo Zucchini, 11-3. Fifth fight of the night is Taylor Lapalus, fighting Howland Loughran, bantamweight. Lapalus 18-3, Loughran 8-0. We got Ang Lusa. It's a tough name for a fighter, Lusa. Loosa. 9-3 at welterweight, fighting Rhys McKee, who's 13-4-1. Nora Cornoli, 6-1 at bantamweight, fighting Jocelyn Edwards, who's 13-4. This is the only fight on the card that's basically a pick-me. Both girls have negative odds winning. So, second fight of the night, Farid Basharat, 10-0, fighting Clayton Rodriguez, who's 8-2 at bantamweight. That'll be a good one. Zara Fern dos Santos, 6-5. I thought she got robbed in her last fight. I thought she won, but she's fighting Jacqueline Cavalcante in this one, 5-1, and she is a huge underdog. Huge underdog. So you're hoping for an underdog payoff. She might do it. I'm not going to guarantee it, though. It's not a lock. But we're going to be getting Harvey Dock here on here in a second. And we're going to get into some of the boxing later on. Schedule and results. Harvey Dock. I warned him today. Gave him the 6-hour warning. I'll be calling around 9:30.
Yes.
Harvey.
Yes.
Hey, this is Rebel Rousing Rich Bergeron here. We got
Hey, how you doing?
Great. We got a couple co-hosts. We call him Psychic Tom Paget and Tony the Tornado Panical.
Hello, how you guys doing?
Great.
All right, great.
So, I was telling the guys we sort of met through Roy Jones Jr., even though he didn't introduce us.
Okay.
We were battling over his signature. But
Okay.
and we saw your profile, and I said, "Oh boy, he's a big referee. Had a big fight recently." So tell us how you got into that.
This is my 20th year in the pro game. I did 6 years in the amateurs, and I had thoughts to becoming a pro, but I was fortunate enough to
I've gotten selected, and I've, like I said, been at it ever since. I think I've done over 100 professional bouts in 20 years, and yeah, I've just been a little fortunate over the last few years.
Awesome. And I know.
Harvey, I was going to ask, you are coming off doing maybe the biggest fight of the year, without a doubt. What was the atmosphere like after that one? And what was it like being in there with two great fighters?
I'll be honest. I was. This might sound corny, but it was just like any other fight to me. And what I mean by that is, I know it was a big fight, but for me, in terms of going through the same mental and physical preparations that I do, I didn't. It was no different than any other fight for me. Because you have the same job to do, and that's maintain the health and safety of the fighters, and make sure they're adhering to the rules. So this was for me almost like another fight. If that makes any sense.
Right. Now,
that makes perfect sense.
When you go into a fight like that, you're going to be the referee. Do you even think about, like, I wonder who's going to win, and like make a prediction at all in your own mind?
Not at all. No. My mind is strictly on adhering to or making sure they're adhering to the rules and regulations, and I'm going through my steps, and I am aware of where I am in the ring at the time, because so much of the sport is positioning and angles and feeding off of their movements, and so just making sure you're in the moment, and not making it any bigger than any other fight.
Awesome.
Just going through the steps you always go through in your head, whatever they may be. So for me, it was just another fight.
Right. Well, I imagine that's why you keep getting picked for these big fights, because you treat them all the same. Because that's what a good judge or referee or anybody that's supposed to be objective would do. So that's great.
Yeah, I mean, that's. I think any good official in any sport, just maintaining objectivity and just making calls that are presented in front of you is, I think, what gives you a clear focus on the task at hand. So that's objectivity is a big part of it.
Now, I ask every referee we've had on the show. It's not a whole lot, but we've had a few. The late Steve Smoger was probably the last one we had on. But have you ever been hit in a fight by a fighter by accident or on purpose?
Well, I'm going to find some wood and knock on it. As of right now, I'd say no, but I'm still young in my career, so anything is possible. I have fallen down a few times.
Trying to get out of the way?
I've slipped a couple of times, but I haven't been hit yet.
Okay. I'll never forget it. It was Tyson versus Douglas. Everybody's talking about the long count, but I had it on tape, video cassette, back in the VCR days. And I used to love watching the moment where, I don't forget where it was Tyson or Douglas, but one of them hit the ref square in the face. And he reacted so well. He just like put his hands on both of them. He goes, hey, none of that. And let the fight continue.
There's videos of referees actually getting hit really hard. There's been a couple of refs that have been actually knocked out cold. So that's certainly not the road I want to travel down. But things do happen in that ring, and it can happen.
Right. I'll tell you, the first time I remember seeing that happen, I was 13. And we were visiting my grandmother. She was in the hospital, and I was coming home to watch Tuesday night fights because, I was a diehard boxing fan. Couldn't miss Tuesday night fights. And that night was supposed to be, originally, George Foreman was going to fight. He was in the middle of his comeback. postponing the Foreman fight, and they ended up showing a card from the Blue Horizon, which is my hometown of Philadelphia. And long before I'd ever gone to a fight there, and I'm watching it, and it ended up being a fight of the year with Vincent Petway, who later became a world champion, and a perennial contender by the name of Victor Davis. And those two were tearing into each other. And the late, great Frank Cappuccino was the referee. And in the 8th or 9th round, right at the end of the round, someone caught him square. And he went down, and they actually had to bring in another referee for the next round. And then Frank came back around after that.
Wow. Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah, and Frank Cappuccino, he's one of the greats and one of the treasures of our sport. He refereed that first fight between Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
And Buddy McGirt would say that after that 9th round, when he thought they were going to stop the fight, they didn't know what was going on because he goes, Frank Cappuccino and Arturo Gatti were speaking Italian in the corner, and Buddy McGirt couldn't understand them.
Right. Yeah. So that's a classic because that 9th round was such a great round.
Unreal. Yeah.
Because it looked like Gotti was definitely out of it, and Frank let him go. And Gotti wound up fighting his way out of. I can't think of a better word to say, but he was in hell in that 9th round. Somehow battled back, and I'm just thinking if that were to happen today, I think 99% of the refs would have stopped the fight today. But Frank, he showed why he's as great as he was, being able to see that Gotti was, able to come through that. I don't think too many other refs would have had the foresight to see that.
When Arturo passed in 2009, I was a fan of Arturo, and ironically, the first card that I went to as a fan, I was 15, was Michael Moore and Burt Cooper, the 1992 Fight of the Year. And I was a 15-year-old kid, and Arturo was fighting his 5th or 6th pro fight on the undercard. And I just knew because the song Thunderstruck played. And I became an instant fan. And I followed his whole career. I went to his 3rd fight with Mickey Ward in Atlantic City. And then I went to his 2nd to last fight when he challenged Baltimore for the title, and he got stopped. A year later, he retired. And when he retired, I was doing a lot of writing for this website. And I wrote a tribute article. And then 2 years later, he was taken from us too soon. And I rewrote the forward to that tribute article and then republished it. And the one thing I said was I talked about going to the 3rd Mickey Ward fight and how electric it was in the Atlantic City Boardwalk Hall. And then I also said the first fight, I was invited to 2 graduation parties that night, and I actually used the other party as a way to get out of both of them. So I said, no, I got this college friends party. No, I got my cousin's party. And I'm like, I was skipping them both. And they're like, you have to go to your cousin's party for an hour. I went to an hour, and then I drove home at about 100 miles an hour. And here's how I described it. I said, some fights you watch on the edge of your seat. Some fights you watch standing up. And some fights you're so into it, you're actually throwing punches.
Right. Yeah, that was they had a hell of a trilogy. That was they were 2 special fighters. They were. Yeah.
Now, do you have?
And what was interesting?
Interesting
about those 2 is that after they battled those 3 fights, Mickey Ward wound up working Arturo Gatti's corner for a few fights afterwards.
Yeah, he walked into the ring a few times, and then he was his lead trainer for Arturo's last fight.
Yes. So that's a very special bond they formed with each other.
When they did that HBO documentary a couple years ago, Legendary Nights, and obviously Arturo at that time had passed, and they were showing clips of him going into the Hall of Fame, and they were talking about his career and his trilogy with Mickey Ward. And the one thing Mickey Ward said, and I actually choked up when he said this, when they were at Arturo's funeral and they were walking by the casket, he goes, I had to hit the casket with a left hook and say, I got you last.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Their bond was truly special. I mean, you often see guys who go to war with one another in the ring and then wind up very good friends outside of the ring. So, yeah, I'm not surprised, and I'm sure they'll link up with each other again in the afterlife. There was a special bond they had, and they provided us with one of the greatest fights. That first fight is one of the greatest fights of all time.
For sure.
As you were saying that, how a lot of fighters, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, guys, you maybe refereed, and when it was over, not only did they have a mutual respect for each other, but they had a mutual friendship with each other. Even I know during my amateur days, I was fighting a guy, I moved up 2 weight classes to fight him. I had to put rocks in my pocket to make the weight, and I go to fight this guy. He was a heavyweight. He had me by about 6 inches in height, and about almost, at the time, 25 pounds in weight. And I fought him hard, but he got me by decision. But we had such a respect for each other that when he won a national title the following year, I was one of the first ones there because I had already finished my tournament to greet him coming out of the ring. And then years later, we went to an Arturo Gatti fight together when he fought Vladimir. And then a few years after that, we were both auditioning for the one Rocky movie. And I had just come out of having my appendix removed, and I shouldn't have been at the audition. And he saw me there, and he said, listen, you look really bad right now. I will take care of you. I will make sure that you get to your car. I will make sure that your ride picks you up. I will make sure that you can walk out of here, on your feet.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a friendship from 2 guys that beat the hell out of each other.
Boxing is weird like that.
So there's a similar story I just heard about, I think within the last week, about Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield. I heard they're living with each other now, and Holyfield is, for the most part, Riddick Bowe's caregiver, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
they're living with one another down in Florida. I can't 100% verify that, but that's what I was informed of within the last week.
Yeah, we actually interviewed Riddick. We got connected with somebody who was doing some kind of charity work with him, and he was about to do some Muay Thai fight overseas, and he had never done a Muay Thai fight, so I don't think he was ready for it. He ended up getting leg kicked, through the ropes basically in the first round. But when we interviewed him, he was still sharp enough to answer questions and stuff like that. But you could tell that there was some mental decline a little bit, and he actually. I'm sure he was joking around, but he actually at one point was like, my next opponent is going to be you," he says to me. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I mean, he still has his inner spirit.
Yeah, definitely.
Despite the damage that he's had to endure from a long career.
And it's one of the things that, he doesn't really end up getting a lot of money out of it himself, but John Scully does a lot of these reunions. He does a lot of these auctions that we both got involved in. And I went to one of them down in Boston at Dana Rosenblatt's bar there across from the Garden. And man, these people, the way they react to each other when they haven't seen each other in 10 or 15 years in some cases, or even longer, it's just, you can't describe it. It's amazing. And that's just the bond that boxing brings to different people. Like, you know, and a lot of these are amateur boxing reunions. You know, that's how long it's been. And these guys have been in the pros for years, and they come back and they haven't seen each other since the amateurs. And it's therapeutic for some of them. Like Peter McNeely was one of the happiest people at that reunion. It was very therapeutic for him.
Yeah, I think Iceman Scully does a great job in raising funds for these fighters and getting them all together. I think he has an annual get together in New York. I think this year they got together on the weekend that I actually refereed. It was the same day. I officiated a fight at the Hulu Theater, and he had a get together with a lot of the older fighters who've competed with one another. So yeah, he does a great job in raising funds and helping these guys, you know, get on their feet and just maintain guys who suffered a great deal in the ring. So it's very honorable what he does.
Yeah, it's just amazed every day. He keeps pushing and doing what he does, and he's going to be doing this other one at the LA training camp.
Yeah, that's in 2 weeks from this weekend.
Yeah, I told him he was looking for a car to get like 5 of these boxers to this event, and I told him, you know, I had to go to a reunion not too long ago, and the dealership that had worked on my truck kind of screwed up the fuel intake and like zip tied it to the dump bed. It's like, so I brought it back to them, and I wasn't like really pissed. I was classy about it, and then, you know, I was thinking about it, and I said, well, you know, I'm not going to want to take my dump truck to 3 states down, you know, or 2 states down here. So I ended up talking to the guy, and I said, you guys ever rent vehicles or anything? And he said, no, you can do a 24-hour test drive, though. So he gave it to me for free. All I had to do is give him the license. So I said, Scully, you know, you're down there in Hartford. Call a couple of these dealerships. Tell them what you're using it for, and just tell them that you'll go around selling it to people, saying, hey, look at all the features this thing has everywhere you go. And I bet you they'll love to do it for you.
Yeah. So, absolutely.
He's just afraid to ask sometimes. But, you know, a couple phone calls, he could get that done. I know he could. Get a big Escalade.
Right. Yeah, he's really remarkable. I really admire what he does, though.
Yeah.
You know, because so many guys are who spilt their blood and given everything of themselves.
Yeah.
They, you know, they're a shell of themselves in these later years, and you know, they're long forgotten. And you know, to show that they haven't been forgotten is, I think it's just it's really, really a great thing what he's done. I don't know if you call it a foundation, but what he continues to do is just awesome.
Yeah, eventually he should be able to get there. I know that he's talked about a couple people are trying to help him with that.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. I've in my very, very small part, I've gotten a few things in his auctions, but that's just a very small part of what he does. Just remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to get him back on the show. We've had him on the show like 4 or 5 times over the years. And I only met him in person a couple times, but yeah, he's just a great guy. And, he knows everybody.
Yeah, he's very, very knowledgeable. I actually worked. I refereed about, I think, at the Hulu Theater where he was in the corner of Archer Baturbia.
Oh yeah, that's the one guy. He's really big on training right now. And he doesn't talk much about it, you know, except when he writes his own articles and stuff like that, and he gets interviewed sometimes about it. But he's kind of like one of many, and you know, with Baturbiev having a lot of family involved. Like
Right.
it's a couple times it's gotten to the point where like some of the family have been jealous of how much influence Scully has on Beterbiev. And they're like, kind of warning him not to get too close and stuff a couple times, but he's definitely made an impact, I think. One of my favorite fighters of all time for his jab, Bad Chad Dawson, was one of Scully's earliest guys. And he did a fabulous job with developing that jab. Favorite jab of all time for me.
Yeah, Bad Chad. I was working some fights in Connecticut a few weeks ago, and Chad Dawson was in the corner of a young boxer. I'm pretty sure he had less than 10 pro fights, and Chad was he went from fighter to trainer now. So I guess he's following
Scully's footsteps. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it happens in both MMA and boxing. A lot of fighters have to end up doing that. I just saw a rant from Philadelphia guy Tony knows, Kaufman. About how he's working a job now, and he always thought his boxing money would be there, and just went on this big rant about all the people he helped aren't there for him now.
He was a little bit too willing to give out to people that were not just, they were using them.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's
I'll tell you,
a sad story of the typical boxer, unfortunately. Money comes in, the entourage takes half of it. You end up wondering where your retirement money is.
I'll tell you, Harvey, you'll appreciate this. I'll tell you a funny referee story. We were just talking about Scully training Beterbiev. A few years ago, they were doing a unification fight in Philadelphia between Beterbiev and Galactic. I think I'm pronouncing it correct. And so, my dad and I were like, we're going to go to the fight. Down at Temple is only about 45 minutes from where I live. So, we get on, we get pretty good seats. And one of the first things on the card is the one young fighter on the card is a Philly kid by the name of Sonny Conto, who trained out of my old gym. And he had been sparring with Tyson Fury a couple years ago when he was just breaking into his pro career. And Fury was champ of the world. So we're sitting there, and the kid next to me goes, my dad was down talking. He goes, Fury's going to walk him to the ring. We're like, yeah, kid, yeah, right. That's a BS story. Then you look out towards where the aisle is, and you see a hulking figure and a bald head. We're like, he really is. There's Tyson Fury right there. So Sonny went to his first round, and then the main event's about to start. And my friend, I don't know if you're familiar with a guy, I don't think he's refereeing anymore, by the name of Gary Rosado.
Yes, I know Gary Rosado. Yes.
Gary, I just saw his son last week, but Gary is a very good friend of mine. He started the boxing program at my alma mater, Lock Haven. So I've known Gary for about 30 years. And he was the referee of this fight. Now, I'm sitting in a section which is primarily Ukrainian. And in the first round, Gary calls a knockdown that ends up getting overturned. But the fans in that section were so incensed. And then as the fight's progressing and Beterbiev's really starting to dominate, the fans are still not letting go of this first round knockdown call. And the point where my dad and I were walking out and we're like, man, if we see Gary Rosado, we're going to cover our heads. They're like, because if we see the Ukrainians know that we know him, they're going to beat the hell out of us, too.
No, Gary's a really good referee. I hope, I don't know what his status is at the moment, but I hope he's able to get himself back in the ring.
Well, I know this, and like I said, I just saw his son last week at a Phillies game, and I'm walking into the place before the game, and the guy looks at me and repeats my first and last name, which I'm like, well, that's kind of weird, and the guy's like, my father. My father's Gary Rosado. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I'm like, you're Garrison Rosado. I never met you, but I know you. And I said to him, man, your dad refereed a couple of my fights. And the one thing he said to me one time, I took a pretty hard knockdown in the one fight. And when I got up, he goes, anybody else, I might have stopped there, but not you. Wow. Yeah, it was obviously an amateur fight, but you're faster to call an 8 count, faster to stop a fight. But he goes, But he goes, your eyes might have been a little glassy, but you were like, I'm good. And he goes, and with you, I know you are.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. It's good knowing your personnel. Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, Harvey, what would you say?
Frank Cappuccino knew Arturo Gotti, right?
I was just going to say that. Yeah, that's knowing your personnel well. Yeah. Absolutely.
Harvey, what would you say was your most difficult fight to referee of all time, if you had one?
Difficult. You know, a lot of the difficult fights are your fights where guys are just turning pro and they don't have a good sense of the rules, or they might be fighting off a lot of nervous energy. So I think some of your toughest bouts are early in your career, the 4 and 6 round bouts.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of rule breaking, and those are much more rule breaking in those fights than the 12 round fights. And I say that because by the time fighters, if they hang around long enough to get to the 10 round and 12 round level, they typically don't get to that level by breaking a lot of rules. So more times than not, your bouts are a little bit easier on the 12 round and 10 round level than the 4 and 6 round level. So, yeah, to answer your question, there's no one fight that jumps off the top of my head, but the 4 rounders and the 6 rounders, those can be pretty difficult. So, yeah, you might see things you don't typically see in, let's say, a championship fight with two, more novice guys that have just turned pro. You know, you're liable to see anything in some of those beginner fights. So, yeah, I've had a few, but nothing that jumps off the top of my head. And even if I knew the names of the fighters, I don't think anybody would know who they were. Right. Yeah.
How about a favorite? Do you have a favorite fight that you refereed? Do you remember fondly, or was good action?
I don't know if I have a favorite, but I know one fight that a lot of fans really enjoyed. Maybe right up there with the most action-packed fight that I've officiated was, I believe, Leo Santa Cruz and Carl Frampton. They basically went toe-to-toe for 12 rounds. Well, that was a barn burn. They just went at it. So I think that was one of my more exciting bouts.
Awesome.
Yeah, Leo, I don't think you could put in a bad fight. I agree. I definitely agree with you.
I know Psychic Tom Fadgett's got to be itching to ask you a question.
Well, Harvey, Harvey, not really a question, but I'm just so thrilled and happy to be able to give you a personal congratulations on the job you did in that Spence Crawford fight. I just rewatched it when I knew you'd be on the show. I watched it live. Okay. And you just reacted just so professionally, because when that jab put Spence down, I was like, oh my God. How is that possible? But you want, sometimes a referee can be overbearing and be the show. You want that. But everyone knew you were in control. And that's professionalism. It's almost like in football, the offensive lineman does their job and they don't really get the credit like they should. But when they're the story, they're controversial. But that one you came to like, wow. And I hope you get more big assignments like that. It's just, again, outstanding effort. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for the acknowledgement. It's just doing my job. But no, I appreciate you acknowledging the job that I did. I appreciate that. I've, as referees in any sport, the way I look at it is if you do a decent job, you really shouldn't I think you do the job you're supposed to do. The athletes are the ones who deserve the stories,
Right.
Because that's
like a writer who doesn't want to be part of the story, right?
They're paying to see those athletes, and like a Crawford Spence fight or NBA game, an NFL game. The people are not paying to see that official. They're paying to see those athletes. So if you can get out of there and no one knows who actually did the fight, I think that's a big compliment for me. I used to like when I did a fight, this was years ago, and I'd go and look at articles the next day, and if my name wasn't mentioned, I'm like, success. That was good enough for me, because like you said, they know when you screw up, but if you do a good job, no one really notices, and
exactly.
For me, that's fine. I don't mind not being acknowledged, because to me that's a sign that you did a decent job.
So take us back to the very beginning for a second and tell us how you developed your love for boxing and how you got where you got today.
Wow. I started amateur boxing in the late 80s. I won a few tournaments in the early to mid 90s. And, I knew at that point in time I wasn't good enough to become a world champion. I was, just good enough to win some local tournaments. And throughout those years, I really, really loved the sport. But, knowing that I wasn't going to be any kind of world champion, but still wanted to be a part of the sport, I said, well, what can I do next besides competing? And officiating was just the natural next step. But during all of these years, from amateur boxing to becoming a professional referee, I even had one pro fight in between. Throughout all of those years, I always loved the sport. Even to this day, I'm a huge fan of the sport. For over 20 years, I've been going out to Las Vegas every year just to see a big fight.
Awesome.
Just as a fan.
Yeah.
So, I have. It's been embedded in me for years now, more than half my life. So,
awesome.
I'm sure I'll be a part of the sport somehow, some way, hopefully, until I'm no longer here. I'll tell you a real quick, funny story about my love for the sport of boxing. I remember on the phone, I was about, I'm going to say my early 20s, very single at the time. And I was on the phone with this young lady, and she was just chewing into me about something. I don't know what it was, but she was, I guess, telling me why she was upset about something I did or didn't do. And in the back, and she heard in the background while she's just pouring her heart out about, whatever it was at the time, either something I did or didn't do. She can hear the bell ringing from a fight on TV. And she was pouring her heart out, and I'm watching the fight. And she was laughing. So yeah, it was like boxing until I had my children. My boxing always came first for me. So
right.
Yeah, so that's my funny boxing story, and just a quick example of my love for the sport.
Awesome.
Is that one of the ones where you make a mistake when they're in the middle of telling you something really important and you react to what's going on the TV like, oh, did you see that? Are you not listening to me?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, so my love for the sport, it's been with me, since I've been, I guess, about 15 years old, and I'm 52 now. So do the math. It's always been life for a very long time. And I'm hoping that doesn't change. It's just a strong passion of mine.
Awesome.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Now, what's been the fighter or fighters that really impressed you the most, seeing them live when you refereed their first fights?
Well, reffing. I don't typically look at. I'm typically not impressed with the fighters when I'm in there. I don't look at it from the perspective of let me see, how do I say? I'm not looking at the fighters for their skills and how they impress me while I'm in there.
Right.
If that makes sense. While I'm
You're looking for violations and where to break them.
Yeah, I'm looking at it from the perspective, and that's it. Because there's certain things I'm anticipating, I'm looking for, and just trying to follow certain steps in my head that's going to make me not successful, but just try not to screw things up while I'm in there. And so I don't know if I'm looking at it from a being impressed point of view, but I do know what I will say is that there were two fighters whose hand speed was absolutely insane to me. And I remember the thoughts that went through my mind. Like, oh my goodness, the hand speed was insane. One of them was Gary Russell Jr. and another one was a young Adrian Broner. And they both had such fast hands.
Yeah.
It was like a blur when they threw combinations. And I've rarely seen hand speed like those two showed me. And it was just like, wow, while I was in there. But I was impressed with their speed. But other than that, I'm really just looking at the two fighters who are in there from an official's perspective, which doesn't allow me to, get too overly impressed with whatever they're doing, because I'm concerned with what I have to do.
How did they do it back in the? Makes you wonder how they did it back in the day, where the refs actually had to judge fights.
I can't imagine. I couldn't imagine, because
I do see why you have to keep it separate. Yeah. Because if you do have a favorite fighter, it's like, oh, geez, I'm going to lean towards more like, helping that fighter out if I feel that way. So you got to separate it. It's like a mentality you have to have, like a judge who's not biased.
One of the reasons why we have judges now.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, well, the judges is being 52 now, getting a little older. It wasn't that long ago where judges were non-existent. I mean, it wasn't that long. I think there were fights as recently as the 70s where some of the referees were judging the bouts. I think it went from just the one arbiter, the referee, scoring a bout, telling you who won when the fight was over, and then maybe in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken, they had the referee and two judges, and then maybe by the late 80s, late 70s, they were using three judges.
Yeah.
So it's not that long ago. So,
right.
But I think it was definitely a move for the better to have three judges as opposed to the referee having the responsibility of judging and refereeing.
Yep.
At least that's how I see it. I wouldn't want that responsibility.
Now, as far as the sport itself, all time, do you have a favorite fight or fighter that you've watched throughout the history of the sport and tried to either, copy yourself as a fighter, or you just love to watch over the years?
Well, my favorite fighter of all time is Sugar Ray Leonard.
All right.
And when I was competing as an amateur, there was just no way to be like Sugar Ray Leonard. I couldn't even try to be like Sugar Ray Leonard. He's one of one as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But that entire era in the early '80s, that's my golden era. So a lot of fighters that a lot of people know about are guys that I really looked up to and admired. So from that era, you obviously had the four Kingsmen, Leonard, Hearns, Hagler, Durant, but there were so many other great fighters from that era, and even going into the '90s. There were so many fighters that I enjoyed watching, and even fighters that weren't as popular as the four Kings from the '80s that I still enjoyed. Guys like Chiquita Gonzalez and Michael Carbajal, those kind of guys, Kennedy McKinney.
Yeah.
I just enjoyed a lot of good fighters, and they didn't have to be like all-time greats for me to enjoy them. There were guys that I just really enjoyed the way they fought, and the sport itself, it consists of guys that I just admire and look up to.
But you remember, we got to watch them every week on free TV. I was around in those days a lot too, and it was just so exciting. Every week we had something on. Great era. Wish we could get it back.
Well, that's why you hear a lot of fans and who grew up in that era say fighting isn't what it used to be. That's because you don't get a chance to see all of the fighters like you used to see them back then on Channel 207, because guys like Ray Leonard, Boom Boom Mancini, Salvador Sanchez, all of those guys, they were fighting on free TV from the beginning of their career. So by the time they got onto the world stage and were challenging for titles, you knew who they were for years. So when fans now, or that older generation say it's not what it used to be, that's why. Because now you don't get a chance to see these guys coming up anymore.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the one thing that really, and I've noticed this over the last maybe 20-some or 30 years now, that really, I think, hurts it a lot. And one of them was consistent programming. So even though you weren't getting as much on your Saturday afternoon, ABC, CBS, that you were still getting your consistent, you knew ESPN, Thursday night, or then they did Sunday for a while, but Thursday night ESPN, you had you had Al Bernstein and Barry Tompkins. And then you knew on Tuesday nights, you had Tuesday night fights, you had Al Albert, Sean O'Grady, and you knew that. And the other thing that I really used to like was getting Ring Magazine and KO Magazine. Every 4 years before the Olympics, you would get a preview of who was on the United States team, and they would break down each guy. I remember when I was really starting to get into it in around the late 80s again, and I was following the 88 team, which was guys like Roy Jones and Riddick Bowe and Ray Mercer and those guys. Then you had the 92 team, which had Oscar De La Hoya, the 96 team, Floyd Mayweather, Tarver, David Reed, Vargas. And you read each guy, and then, so when they started their pro career, and a lot of them were fighting on USA's Tuesday Night Fights, you said, I read about this guy, he was in the Olympics, and now I'm interested in following his career. They stopped doing that probably after the 04 team, I think it was. So by the time you got to 08, you didn't even know who was on the U.S. team. And Olympic boxing wasn't getting shown like it was. So these guys are coming out, and you're like, oh, this guy was Olympian. I'm like, oh, he was? Didn't know that. So, I mean, I think that hurts a lot. The lack of consistent programming, even if it wasn't, if it was the cable channel, USA or ESPN, and then just the lack of, really building up these young guys.
Yeah, no, I agree 110% with you. Absolutely. You don't get a chance to see who these guys are. You don't see them on a consistent basis. The programming is almost non-existent. It's very tough to follow these guys now. I mean, you have to, and then as you get older, and there's so many different types of streaming services, it's hard. It's probably a lot easier for the younger guys to keep up with these different streaming services and how to.
I'm still amazed sometimes when somebody shows me
technology, but as you get older, it becomes more and more difficult to find fights, and it's just a lot more difficult to follow these guys. So I'm with you 110%. And to piggyback off of what you said about the Olympics, yeah, I mean, in the last few years of the Olympics, the boxing, you never know when it's coming on, and a lot of times it's coming on at 2 and 3 in the morning, and you never know when it's coming on. And yeah, that's one reason why you don't know who these guys are when they turn pro.
And they changed that scoring system, that computerized scoring system that took a lot of the fun out of it. Like, I even know, going back and watching, one of the ones that you mentioned him a few minutes ago, Ray Leonard. Now, he won the Olympic gold a few months before I was born in 76. But I'll still go back and watch some of his fights in the Olympics just because it was just, the best word he used was dazzling. And when he turned pro, and I was, just growing up, he would be fighting a lot on, free TV, and I used to love to watch him with my dad. Loved watching Ray Leonard with my dad. And when I was about 4 or 5 years old, my dad bought me a little Sugar Ray Leonard bag to hit. And I have a picture where I'm hitting it with my big left hook. I was 5 years old. And a couple years ago, I saw him in Vegas. And unfortunately, it was at a convention, and his line was so long, and I had to go. So I was going to meet my dad because we were going into the Canelo fight. And I'm like, if I could stay another 30 minutes, that's the one guy I was going to show him that picture and say, this meant so much to me as a kid.
Yeah. Ray Leonard was special. And yeah, those times that we grew up with the sport and knowing who those guys were, that holds special places in our hearts. So you have your special place in your heart watching those guys with your father. And a lot of us had that growing up, seeing young boxers come out of the Olympics and turn professional. That was just a big part of your upbringing, being associated and attached and having those fond memories of your athletic heroes. And for boxing nowadays, unfortunately, it just doesn't exist. And sometimes you have some really, really good fighters, and people just don't know how special they are. Like, I don't think Andre Ward I don't think he ever captured the public imagination like the Ray Leonard did. Right. Because, when he turned pro, people just weren't that familiar with him. Because I think the 2004 Olympics, and by that time, they just weren't showing boxing like they did when you and I were, me seeing the 76 Olympics, you seeing those guys from 88, Roy Jones, that was special. I mean, and everybody got a chance to see that. And I don't know if people can appreciate how good you have to be to come out of the Olympics, let alone win the Olympics, and then transition into your pro career. But that was the springboard. The Olympics, if you made the Olympic team, and definitely if you medaled, more or less got a gold medal, that was your springboard to stardom. Now it's like you get a gold medal, and you're still, for the most part, in somewhat of obscurity for a lot of families.
Except for Clarissa Shields. She's done pretty well with it. She's about the only one. She's the anomaly.
Well, talking about Andre Ward, like I remember when he won the Olympic gold, and I did follow his career because I liked him. I liked him not just as a fighter, but as just the way he spoke in the ring, the way he conducted himself. I always saw him as a constant gentleman, and I never got a chance to meet him in person. But on the Creed 2 set, I sat 5 feet from him when he was filming the scene when he loses to Michael B. Jordan at the beginning. Okay. I was a front row extra in his corner. So I was sitting there, and there was a kid sitting maybe about a section down from me. And he was like an off-the-screen extra, and he's sitting there talking like, I'm going to be champ of the world, and he's telling all this stuff. I'm like, you haven't had any fights, kid. And then
they need me to go in the ring and show them how to do this. I'm like, that's Andre Ward, gold medalist and like 3-time world champion, that you're going to go tell what to do? I never heard of him. I'm like, exactly. As a fan, I think you'll appreciate this. And I was really getting into boxing at this time when this happened. And it's unfortunate, and it was at a non-televised show before you had digital cameras. Because to my knowledge, there is no recording of this anywhere. 1994, I was just graduating high school, and my dad takes me to a show, 4th of July weekend in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is the home of Smokin' Joe Frazier, who was still alive. I had just met him a few months prior for the first time. And he was going to be, it was a Welcome America boxing card. And not only was Smokin' Joe going to be there, but so was Muhammad Ali. And Ali was starting to show the signs of the Parkinson's. A couple of years before, he was really shaking doing the Olympic torch. So Joe gets in the ring, and of course, the Philadelphia crowd is, going crazy. Joe's in there. And then you see Ali starting to get in the ring, starting to shuffle up them steps very slowly. He has his head down. He steps in that ring, and he looks up, and he sees Joe Frazier, and his eyes gleamed. And he started dancing around the ring, just like he was 22 years old. And he started doing the Ali shuffle. And Joe, I know there was some bitterness between them, but Joe picked up on it, and he dropped into the crouch and doing the bob and weave. Now, I was born a year after Manila, and I knew both of them. I had watched videos of them, but I was looking at grown men in that crowd with tears streaming down their face. And to this day, I can find no video of it, but I know where it is, and it's still captured in my mind, and I can still see them both.
Wow. That touches me, just hearing it and seeing it. Oh, my goodness.
Like when they did the Joe Frazier statue, and it's going to be 8 years next week, because it was dedicated on Marvis's birthday, which happened to be the day before my birthday. And I was going to a Phillies game right across the street, right at the foot of the old Philadelphia Spectrum, which is now like a nightclub and a restaurant. And they were doing the statue dedication. It took them a couple of years to get funds raised for it, and it took them a couple of years to fight where they were going to put it. So that day, I'm down there early for a game, and Rich knows I like to do video editing. So I took a bunch of photos. And I have guys, because I'm dressed up in my Phillies outfit, which is a replica of Apollo Creed, and I have guys like Michael Spence coming up to me for photos, Ivan Robinson, brother Nazim Richardson, who recently passed away. And I'm taking pictures for all these guys. And then there were guys that I trained with that were there that had never seen me in character. And I actually fed it to the song "Ain't No Stopping Us Now." And I made a video of it. When Rich and I went to the Rocky Marciano statue dedication, which is going to be 11 years in a few weeks. I was invited up there by Rocky's nephew because they found out that my uncle was at the fight in Philly when Rocky won the title. So they invited me up. Rich was doing some work for their website at the time. And I did the same thing. I took all the photos, and I took the song from Rocky V by Elton John, "Measure of a Man," and I did the same thing. I made a video out of it.
Don King actually, I was not a big fan of him at the time. I still am not, but Don King actually gave one of the best speeches at the Rocky Marciano dedication.
Wow. But Don was great.
Yeah, he's provided a comic
relief. Rocky Marciano was not a racist man. He didn't care if you were white. He didn't care if you were black. You could be yellow, because all Rocky did was he knocked you out any color you were. He knocked them all out equally. You know what? I'll say this. That's awesome. The work you've done. Let me give you a quick my feelings about Don King and boxing today. I hear a lot of people today complain
complain about the pay-per-view fights, about, you don't get the bang for your buck. But Don King, love him or hate him, he used to give you bang for your buck. Yes, he did. He gave you 4 title fights on one card, and one of those fights could have held their own on their own, and he would give you 4 of them. And I believe a lot of times they were only like $40 or $50. I mean, I
remember those days.
Yeah. He knew how to put on a show, that's for sure.
You would get a Don King card, or Mike Tyson be in the main event, but you would get Terry Norris on the undercard. He was the one that opened the door for Christy Martin. You had Chavez on how many of those cards? Those, you're right. Those are some good cards. We'd have big parties at the house. I was, 16, 17 at the time. My dad would have a lot of his friends come over, and it was like, I'm just ordering pizzas and I'm watching the fights with all these guys, and the fact that they accepted me to talk boxing with them was great for me as a kid coming up.
Only in America.
Yeah. A lot of times when you're in the moment, you can get into complaining about what things aren't.
Yeah.
But then, as the years pass on, you realize how good those times really were.
Oh, yeah.
If you compare the Don King, Bob Arum 80s and 90s to a lot of what goes on now in terms of just what you get for your money, it was much, much better when you only had those guys doing most of the big events.
Right.
Because there were no issues with different networks and promoters, and if you had a contract with this network and this manager and this promoter, HBO, for the most part, they took all the promoters and they let it compete. And you got a lot of fights done, a lot of great fights back in the 80s and 90s. Not that you got them all, but you certainly got a lot more than you do now. There was a lot less divisiveness and division then than there is now.
Well, Harvey, as we're talking, I just got a press update, and I don't know how long ago this broke, but you might be getting another big assignment soon because Errol Spence is invoking his rematch clause.
I heard that. Yeah, I heard that earlier today. Yes, wow. Yes. I wish him the best. I just hope he's healthy. He took a lot of punishment.
Yeah, it was rough to watch.
And when you come back off a very serious accident like he was in, who knows how much that really physically and emotionally affected him. I mean, you get some guys that come back from stuff like that and they do well. One of my favorites, Vinny Paz, came back from that. But other guys, that does a lot of damage.
Right. Yeah. It takes a certain special kind of guy just to get himself back in shape and get in the ring and win a title after going through that anyway. I would imagine 99% of the fighters wouldn't even fought again after that, let alone capturing a title like he did, I believe, in Usyk fight, and then going on to fight in a big mega fight like he did in his last fight. It's just a certain special kind of individual he is, just to be able to come back from that. And yes, I think you're right in comparing his ordeal to Vinny Paz. I don't think, probably 1 in a million persons would have, after having their neck broken like Vinny Paz, would have come back and fought, let alone fought successfully.
All right.
When I talk about Vinny a lot, he was my favorite back in like the late 80s, early 90s, to the point where I had named my dog after him. I said when I got the puppy, he looked like a little devil. And then when I met Vinny, I showed him the picture, I told him the story. And then we became close enough on Facebook and social media. We communicate with each other. When my dog died, he sent me a personal condolence. And so I tell people, how I was a fan of Vinny growing up. And I tell them to watch the movie Bleed for this. And when I tell them, I said, there's going to be some things that was not historically accurate, like he didn't fight Duran first. And when he won against Gilbert Delay, it was the 12th round, not the second round. But the one thing that is, as they said, the one thing they changed was the length of time it took him to start training again, which they made it look like a couple weeks, When he came out, it was about 4 days after I got home. He goes, I couldn't sit still. He goes, but they wanted to make it look a little bit longer than it was. So we could have been paralyzed. He said, when can I fight again? They said, you may never walk again. They put the halo on. I said, and in 11 months, almost, he was fighting again. They're like, that's impossible. I said, well, it's not impossible because I witnessed it live. I remember he won delay. I remember the accident, which was in December, a few weeks later. And I remember his first fight back on USA, Tuesday Night Fights. I can still see him running to the ring. And they're like, well, how long did he fight? I'm like, 11 years. So that's not true. I'm like, it is true because I went to 2 of the fights, and I followed his career, and I watched his retirement fight.
We had a great conversation with Vinny, too, after the Marciano statue dedication. And we were all, hanging out at the stadium. And there was a big VIP party across the street at some other building, and we couldn't even get in. And it was just so funny because it was just all 3 of us, we were all regular guys. he was asking us where the party is. It was funny. Talking about that green belt too. He always wanted the green belt. So it was funny.
Yeah, he wanted the green belt. Well, I'll tell you, the thing that Vinny was, when he met my dad, I think he saw a lot of his dad who had passed away in my dad. Because after I met Vinny at the One Fight card, his book had come out the following year, and I wanted to get a copy for my dad, but I didn't know how to order online at the time. I didn't do much of that. It was late 2000s, 2008 to 2009. And I'm like, I never used Amazon at the time, never, didn't have an account. So I'm like, I still got his number from when Rich and I interviewed him. I said, I'm just going to call him. He said, yeah, Tony Tornado, how you doing? And I said, hey, I want to get this book for my dad. I said, but I don't know how to do it. He goes, you ever use Amazon? I said, all the time, Vinny. Almost every day. He goes, when you order it, here's my address. Send it to me, and I'll sign it for your dad. And he did, which I thought was great. And he said, give your dad my best. And he never met him. So a couple years later, we're at the statue dedication. Now, we don't know he's going to be there. It's a New England event, and a New England guy, Italian, put 2 and 2 together, likely. But we don't know. My dad, not thinking, puts on a Vinny Paz shirt that I had bought him for Christmas the 1 year that he loved. was no material anymore. So I see Vinny, I'm talking to him, and I said, Vinny, here comes my dad. I'd like to introduce you. He looks at my dad, seeing his likeness on my dad's shirt, and he just runs over and gives him the biggest bear hug. Oh my God, it's so great to meet you, sir. To my dad, it's great to meet you.
Yeah.
And they took a picture. I sent the picture in the Ring magazine. They got it published. And then a few years ago, we're out in Vegas for the Canelo-Danny Jacobs fight. Right. And I was going to that convention. I was telling you about Ray Leonard there and Roy Jones there. So I see Vinny coming in. He looks over and he sees me. Tony P, what the hell's going on? Why is your dad not with you right now? I want to say hi to your dad. And I'm like, he's back at the hotel relaxing because, he's chilling a little bit because we're going to go to the fights in a little bit. He wanted us, catch his breath. What are you doing? The dad I was asking for.
Oh, that is so awesome.
I was saying, some of us loud Italians, I don't know, we gravitate to each other.
You know what? I tell you, I go out to Vegas every year to a big fight. That year, I went out to see Canelo and Jacobs. I was there, and I remember the convention with Ray Leonard there, and Ray Leonard was there with Tommy Hearns. And,
I got my picture with Tommy Hearns.
Did you?
Yes.
You're right. They had a long line, and I just couldn't make it. I was a little disappointed, but yeah.
And I purposely got in the Roy Jones line, because Roy was a guy that I watched, his whole career from start to finish. And I got in the Roy line because I wanted to tell him something that he did that I really appreciated. When I was telling you about seeing Andre Ward on the Creed 2-step for that one fight scene, I was sitting front row behind the blue corner. And Roy had come in because he was one of the commentators for that fight. And he was about maybe 30 yards from me, and they were putting his makeup on.
And I'm in my scene. They told me I'm a Vegas VIP, and I have to dress like I just came from the craps table. So I got like a shirt on, the tie's halfway down, got like this vest on, I got a fedora on, and I look over, and Roy and I kind of, lock eyes. Now he doesn't know me from me interviewing him, a couple years prior, and he said to him, I'm a stranger. But I turned to him and I saw him and he looked at me and I took my fedora and I tipped my hat to him. The guy's the champ of the world, one of the best to ever do it. And when I nodded my hat to him, he turned and he gave me a head bow in response. And I'm like, that meant a lot to me. So when I saw him at that convention taking a photo, I said, I wanted to tell you how much that meant to me.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, so those two examples you used, that one with Roy Jones and Vinny Paz wondering where your father was. A lot of these guys are regular human beings.
Yeah.
And it's a treat when you get to see the human element that many of them possess. That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome.
It's like one of the most famous people I've ever interviewed in person was Alice Cooper. And come to find out, he coaches his son's little league team and drives a Volvo. and his kids call him Alice Cooper when they see him on the stage, but they know they distinguish between that as like a different person almost than their father. It's funny.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, anyway, Harvey, it's
earlier, I always say about meeting different people and talking to different people and how much I love doing it. And I actually was a guest on a podcast outside of Philadelphia last week, and the one guy we were talking to, we were talking about, I should say, because he was a local legend close to where I grew up, but he trained back in the 40s with Rocky Marciano.
Right.
He refereed Joe Frazier's second pro fight, refereed Marvin Hagler when Hagler was fighting in Philadelphia a couple times, and he had a managerial piece of Michael Grant when Michael fought Lennox Lewis for the title. And for whatever reason, a couple years ago, this man saw me at an event, and he just, maybe the Italian thing, we became friends, and he liked this Phillies Apollo Creed gimmick I do when I go to games. He'd have me come to events all the time, and so when he passed away at 96, he was born 2 months after Rocky in 1923. It'll be Rocky's anniversary of his death today, and Rocky would be 100 years old tomorrow. So rest in peace, Rocky Marciano. Happy 100th in heaven. And this guy, Hank, would have been 100 in November. So we were talking about him, and one of the things he would always say was, he goes, when you meet people, he goes, do something that's going to catch their attention. And he would always have me come to these events, even in January, in a sequined, sleeveless hat and cape. And I would always do it. And a couple of years ago, Carl Weathers played Apollo Creed was in Philadelphia. And my dad goes, you going to meet him? I said, yeah. He's like, you're not wearing the Apollo outfit, I hope. I said, of course I am. He goes, good. Because he goes, if you didn't, if you weren't, I was going to tell you don't have the guts to do it. I catch his attention, doing that, and we take a photo, we talk for a few minutes. I'm like, I'm talking to a guy that I've watched so many times over the years. And then this year, I go to Clearwater in Florida. I go to a meet and greet with Hulk Hogan, who I grew up watching. And I said to him, I'm coming to your karaoke night, and I'm dressing as the Thunderlips character from Rocky III. And the last year I was in there, I don't get called up to sing. And I had to run up and grab his hand for a photo. This year, you're coming, right? I said, I'll be there. This year, they're like, bro, you're second in queue. He's not even here yet. But he came in and he actually sought me out. And someone's like, how do you get to do that? I'm like, well, because one, I'm personable. But two, I have something that's a little bit unique. And I'm not afraid to put myself out there and say, I'm going to come in here in a Thunderlips cape. Or I'm going to come in here dressed as Apollo Creed.
Oh, that is so awesome. The Rocky series is probably my favorite of any movie that I've ever watched. So when you mention Rocky,
Oh God, they made a new friend now.
My heart vibrates a little bit.
Well, like I said, I'm a Philly guy, so like I go to the landmarks all the time. Like I've been to the Italian market. I've been to the art. They do a Rocky 5K every year at the art museum. So I started doing it a few years ago, and I'm a guy. I do everything over the top. So there's people that are serious runners, and they got their spandex on, and their little shirts, and their hats, and their headbands, and all that. And they're going to put an effort into this 5K or 10 mile or 13 mile marathon or whatever. I am not. You know, I'm 40 years old now. I wasn't a runner when I was 170 pounds. I ain't a runner now, but I'm going to give you a good shot. So the first year I did a black and gold Italian stallion robe, a fedora, taped my hands up, black and gold trunks. Someone thinks you're going to run like that? Of course. And I did a decent show. I said, nope, I got to one-up it. And I now run in a costume foam muscle suit, a pair of red compression socks pulled up to my calves with laces put in them and tassels. I got the blonde wig, the white fedora with the feather in it, and the Thunderlips cape. And I run dressed as Thunderlips.
Oh, Thunderlips in the flesh.
Oh, this year I'm actually putting a team together that runs in November. I'm putting a team together. We are going to be the ultimate meatballs.
Oh, that is so cool. Hey, keep me posted. I would do it. I run 5 and 10Ks. So, yeah, keep me posted. I come out there and run it. That'll be fun.
I'll tell you right now, it's November the 11th. If you are on Facebook, look up Rocky Run. And you'll find just the event. They have the...
Yeah.
I was getting off the train last year because I leave my house. I'm about 40 minutes outside the city. So I take the train down so I don't go to park. So I get on the train. It's pitch black. It's like 4 in the morning. I'm getting on the train. And I'm at the same stop, and I could see he's a runner. He was from like Yugoslavia or somewhere, one of them Eastern Bloc countries. He's like, oh, I run a marathon every week. He's like, I do 13 mile this week. I'm going to do 26 mile next week. I'm like, oh, God bless you, buddy. I'm doing a 5K dressed up like an idiot. Right. Oh, that's so like that. I have a former boxing teammate of mine who lives in Kansas City, Missouri now. He's like, bro, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, what? He goes, I'm watching CNN, and they were doing a thing in Philadelphia about this Rocky Run, and who do I see going up the steps? You.
Hey, no, I'm serious. I'm going to look up Rocky Run. I may do it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the whole series. So yeah, I was
Good stuff.
that podcast that I filmed last week. We were talking about it when I said earlier about when I ruptured my appendix and my one former opponent was looking out for me at the audition. Yeah. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm a boxer and I'm Italian. Maybe they'll put me in the gym hitting the heavy bags. So I get this audition, and the casting director goes, "Do you want to read?" I said, "Read me? Okay, sure." Shoot, I could see you being a white trash thug in a bar. I get a compliment. I guess. I don't get the part. I see the guy that did, and I still hate him to this day. So I was on set 2 days, but I was an unpaid extra, and and I was at the art museum for the credits, and I get edited. And I could see my arm in like 1/10 of a second, and one third. I'm like, that's my arm. So I'm of course bitter. Then they're taking the auditions for Creed, and I'm like, I'm not doing it. No, I'm touting from 10 years ago. I'm not doing it. And one of my old boxing teammates from Lock Haven, named Chuck Masaccio, he was 18 and something as a pro.
Yeah, I'm familiar with him. He's from New Jersey.
Yeah, Chuck. Yeah, I actually helped train him when he started at Lock Haven. There's Chuck in the gym hitting the heavy bags. I'm like, you son of a bitch. So when he came out, I sent my thing in, and they're like, oh yeah, I remember you. You're the appendix guy. So front row of the Adonis Creed, Danny Stuntman Wheeler, a.k.a. Andre Ward fight.
Right.
You can see him. I verified it. He's in the movie.
I'll get the DVD. I'll sign it for my nephew, Uncle Tornado, Best Supporting Extra.
Not many people get to become extras in the Rocky movie, so that's pretty cool.
And we got to interview Mason, the Mason Dixon. Was that the guy's name in the movie?
Yeah,
Antonio Tarver. I got Antonio Tarver on the show for Tony years ago. Not too long after that movie. That was great.
We interviewed Antonio probably about 10 years ago, and another fun one to talk to, great personality. When he was young and pro at the Blue Horizon, my dad was actually working corner that night, and they were in the same locker room.
Right.
Awesome.
And then he was actually, I don't know if you recognize, there was a coach from Lock Haven, passed away last year. His name was Dr. Ken Cox.
Okay, no, I'm not familiar with him.
Okay, Dr. Cox, actually, he would have turned 90 today. He was one of the team managers of the 96 team. So he would come back and he would tell us stories about all the guys on that team. Tarver, David Reed, Vargas. And he said, we had this one pain in the ass kid on the team, this young kid. All he wanted to do was bum quarters from the other fighters so he could play arcade games. That turns out to be Floyd Mayweather. When Dr. Cox died last year, because Antonio and I had talked a couple times on Instagram, and he was like, "Oh, you were one of Doc's boxers. I remember you." And I was the one that broke the news to him that he had passed.
Oh, wow.
When we interviewed him, the first thing I said was, I said, "Antonio, I knew a guy from the 96 team, one of the managers," and I did an imitation like, "Antonio, what are you doing? You're not going to get ready for this fight. You're not going to make weight." And he goes, "You know Dr. Cox."
Yeah. Hey, Antonio, he's got such a great personality.
Oh, yeah.
He's so cool.
Good guy.
He's so cool. Yeah. I actually was on the national circuit. I won a couple of local tournaments in New Jersey and was on the national circuit when he was out there. And he's always been such a cool dude.
Mm-hmm.
And a killer in that ring. Boy, in that amateur circuit, boy, you didn't want to be in that light heavyweight division because he was knocking everybody out. He was vicious.
Yeah.
But just a nice, cool guy.
Yeah. Last time I saw him personally was at the, speaking of Danny Jacobs, it was the Danny Jacobs-Sergio Moore rematch, which was September of 16 in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a 40th birthday gift for me, was ringside tickets to that.
Nice.
And Antonio was doing color commentary when he was walking out. I went over to say hi to him, and I did the Dr. Cox impersonation. He goes, "Yep, I remember you from doing the interview."
Yeah, he was. I actually saw him last month. He was at the Crawford Spence fight, and I saw him in the hotel lobby, and we embraced, and it was just good to see it. But, yeah, still a nice, cool guy.
Awesome. All right, Harvey, we're gonna let you go. But it's been amazing talking to you. We could go on forever. I'm sure we probably got to do a second interview at some point. Get into some other topics. But it's just amazing getting your perspective too of a professional referee, like Tom said. You did a great job in that Spence fight, and tell people where they can find you online for our listeners that want to see more of you.
I'm on Facebook at I believe it's either Doc Harvey or Harvey Dock. I don't have Instagram, and I'm on Twitter at Doc Harvey.
Awesome. And it said that you're a journalist on the Facebook page. What are you doing with the journalism? You coming up with a book?
That was a long time. No, that was a long time ago.
Okay.
That means my Facebook needs to be updated. I'm an assistant superintendent on a construction site now.
Oh, all right. That's different. A little different than writing.
Yes. Yeah, right. haven't written in a good little while, but
well,
just need to update that.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to pick it up again. You never know.
Facebook right now, and one of our mutual friends is a guy that I was actually at the center with this morning. He was actually at the Spence Crawford fight. I saw him like a week later. I'm like, hey man, I haven't seen you. I'm like, hey, what do you think of that fight last week? He's like, bro, I was there.
Yeah, who is this?
His name is Donald Lyons.
Okay.
He showed me a picture of you and him at the fight.
Donald Lyons. Okay. All right. Sounds good.
All right, Harvey. We will keep in touch, and I'll shoot you a link when we get this posted, and we'll promote it across Facebook and our social networks. And we also have a website. We got Spreaker, where we do this podcast, and then we take the interviews separate, and we put them on Blog Talk Radio, our profile there, where we got most of our big-time interviews, and we got... our most listened to interview was like 20,000 listens in like a week. And that was Hector Camacho Jr. the week after his dad got shot. Yeah, that was a very emotional interview. That was good stuff. Anyway, great to have you. An awesome conversation. Look forward to chatting again at some point. And now I'm glad I lost on the auction. Yeah. I bet you would have. That's why I ducked out.
No, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
See ya. Have fun.
All right. So
I'm going to get ready to tap out myself because I got a 5 a.m. gym session tomorrow.
All right. Well,
you guys will appreciate this. So, my 1 clock I'm not using right now, which has like the most obnoxious alarm in the world. I think I won the thing when I was in high school 30 years ago, and I'm still using it. But right now, I don't have room to put it where in the room that I'm sleeping in. So I'm like, I'll just use my phone. So the first night I put this ringtone on, like at 5 in the morning, it sounds like pixie dust farting. I'm used to that. But like that doesn't work. So then I changed it to a cuckoo clock. And I'm like, that's not working either. These things are barely getting me up. And my dad goes, remember what I used to do to you when you were in 2nd grade? I said, yeah. I'd be sleeping, and my dad would put on Reveille. He'd blare it at like 6 in the morning, and then he'd start singing it.
Yeah.
So he goes, you want to put that on there? Dude, 5 minutes later, I have a Reveille on my phone as my alarm to wake up in the morning.
Good morning, Vietnam.
Hours from now, I'm going to be cursing at him for doing that.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, that's a great interview with Harvey Dock. I'm looking forward to what costume he comes up with now for your Rocky fight.
Yeah.
But we've got a couple MMA stories I wanted to brush up on before we depart the airwaves here, and then
you guys do that. I'm gonna tap out for the night, so I'll talk to you guys next week.
Okay.
All right, buddy. I'll see you guys.
And the big fight last weekend was the Dubois fight. There wasn't really a whole lot of other buzz going around for boxing, but just for shits and giggles, I'll probably check the upcoming schedule so we don't forget about that. But the 2 stories I had, Chris Weidman and Sean O'Malley related. Chris Weidman has ironically criticized the shit out of the UFC doctor for saying that he might have a tear in his MCL or his knee might be screwed up, because he said that the doctor barely looked at it, and then he says, there's no tear, but I do have a fracture. I'll only be out 4 weeks, he says. So I don't know. I just think he is ignoring all the signs that he needs to take a second look at continuing in this sport. But he is very adamant that there's no serious tear that would keep him out or for a year or whatever, or make him have to retire for whatever reason. But I don't know. I just don't know whether he can put it back together. Obviously, he recovered after the last serious break, but we don't know how serious this fracture is. And then there's Sean O'Malley, who is my new hero, not because he just won the fight, but because he is already taking it to MMA managers in the public forum. Something that I criticized the shit out of Conor McGregor for not doing when he had the spotlight. O'Malley is already calling attention to what he calls POSs. These managers who take 20% of fighters' purses and 20% of their bonuses. He says,
I read that.
If you do this to fighters, you are a POS, he says. So I hope he does more of that. That's encouraging. And he also advised fighters to be careful when they sign these management contracts and have them read by a lawyer. And interestingly enough, I did not know this until I read this article, but he actually was representing himself going into this fight. So Dana White, supposedly, when he put the belt around his waist, said, you have no idea how much money you're going to make. So, maybe that's partially the reason, because he does manage himself. He's getting it all, except for what he pays his trainers and stuff. But that's encouraging.
Yeah, and I got to give him credit, for doing it his own way.
Yeah. Good stuff. So let's just check the schedule. We'll give it 3 stars. We'll just do the 3-star about fights that pops up on good old Box Ref here. Takes forever, of course. Oh, Dana White's Contender Series the other night. I did watch almost all the fights. I think it's like 3 out of 4. Some very talented fighters there. Little undefeated guy got knocked out by a dude from Brazil that looked really, really promising. But that fight actually closed the show, and it was like the one UFC card I could bet on when I was down in New Hampshire the last time. So I did 3 out of 4. I picked correctly, but that 4th one fucked my bad on the parlay. All right, so we got 3-star fights for this weekend. Oh, now you're gonna live it again, of course. Come on, Box Ref. Okay, we got a female fight over in Denmark. Dinah Thorsland, 19-0 against Julian Luna Avila, 25-3-1 for a couple of bantamweight titles, WPC and WBO female titles. And we got over in the UK, 22-1 Lyndon Arthur at light heavy facing Brian Nahul Suarez with 18-1 for the IBO World Light Heavyweight title. Saturday, we got IBO World Super Flyweight title on the line in South Africa. Ricardo Malajika, 11-2, and Kevin Luis Munoz, 16-1 there. Also Saturday in the UK, Liam Smith, 33-3-1 against Chris Eubank Jr., 32-3. Wasn't that the fight that's been canceled 6 or 7 times? Chris Eubank Jr. has had that the eggs controversy. He's been fighting over. That's him, right? I think so. And then the well, not the co-main event, I don't think, but the other best fight on that card in Manchester, UK. Adam Azim 8-0 against Aram Banyan, who's 23-1. Last on Sunday in Okayama City, we got Shingo Wake 29-8-2 against Jose Velasquez 32-8-3. Super bantamweight, no title. That's in Japan on Sunday. And that's about it for this week. Right on the dot, 11 o'clock. A long one. The full 2. Till next week, I guess.
Well, that was definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah, Harvey's a great guy. He's very conversational.
Yeah, I mean,
good stories.
Hopefully down the road we'll have him back, and
yeah,
I'll look forward to seeing him perform. In the future. I mean, all consummate professional for sure.
I'm sure we'll see the pictures from the Rocky run. He's definitely going to do it. I mean, he said it like 4 times. So Tony made a new friend when he started talking about being a Rocky fan.
Yep.
I knew that. It was going to be instant. All right, Tom. Till next week. Thanks a lot.
Let's enjoy the fights. Over and out.
Here we go.